One of Oklahoma's biggest state agencies is now mapping plans to let hundreds more employees go and cut services to the state's most vulnerable. The Department of Human Services was cited as one agency that will get more money for the next fiscal year, but as it turns out, the extra funding falls far short of what is really needed.
Just like some other budgets for key state agencies, what lawmakers said they did wasn't actually what they did. Senator Clark Jolly, chairman of the Senate Appropriations Committee, insisted DHS is getting the money it needs to operate in fiscal year 2017.
We are increasing funding from FY16 after the revenue failures. We are actually giving DHS more money. We are giving them the full amount of Pinnacle plus an additional $5 million in this budget to make sure that they have more money in FY17 than they wound up with in FY16.
But as it turns out, DHS has a $100 million budget hole to fill. And even with some extra money, their state funding for FY17 will mean scores of layoffs, furloughs, and cutbacks in services. Out of concern for those cuts, State Representative Jason Nelson and others worked out a last-minute deal with DHS, ensuring there would be no cuts to spending on the developmentally disabled, at-home nursing care under the Advantage waiver, or community-based waiver programs. But that meant some of that full funding for the Pinnacle Plan was not going to the Child Welfare Department as claimed.
On the pay for and Child Welfare Division, there was a call for a reimbursement rate increase and a pay increase for the workers in that division, and we froze those at the current level.
DHS is under a court order to improve outcomes for children placed in state care. Representative Nelson says putting that Pinnacle Plan money elsewhere won't stop improvements.
Most of the infrastructure for the Pinnacle Plan is in place. We have already increased reimbursement rates and pay for those employees in that division. So we're not going backwards, we're just not taking that last step on some of the increases, that those will still happen in the future.
Foster parents were notified by letter from Tom Bates, the governor's special advisor on the Pinnacle Plan. He says reaction has been mixed.
It hasn't been all positive, but surprisingly it hasn't been all negative either. I mean, a lot of foster parents expressed appreciation for the raises they had received the previous 4 years and appreciated the communication. That's one of the things that we're really trying to do now at DHS.
Lana Freeman is president of the Foster Care and Adoptive Association of Oklahoma and a foster parent of 30-plus years. When she started taking in children, the reimbursement rate was $10 a day. It's about $19 now. When foster parents got that letter, reaction on their Facebook page came quickly.
And it wasn't the fact that they didn't expect it, because they kind of knew that the state was crippled financially. But the fact is that they felt so little support.
Since the beginning of the state's foster care system, decisions that impact those involved have come with little, if any, consultation.
There wasn't, can we meet together? Can we talk about this? What kind of resources can we give you? It was just, well, here it is.
Ms. Freeman says even with the improvements, because of the court-ordered Pinnacle Plan, being a foster parent in Oklahoma or a social worker in child welfare is very difficult.
Social workers aren't getting an increase either. The average tenure a lot of times are 1 year for foster parents, less than that for social workers. And we're in desperate straits. We've got to start working together.
Both Representative Nelson and Special Advisor Bates say using the Pinnacle funding for other programs will not violate that court order.
The Pinnacle Plan is binding on the department, not on the state, not on the legislature. So, and it's binding on the department in the sense it has to make a good faith effort to meet the provisions of the plan.
I do feel like we're on solid ground, and I think we've stayed in close contact with the court, the co-neutrals, the plaintiffs about the budget situation. It's less than ideal, but I think we will manage to keep making the progress in those key areas.
Bates also agrees the progress made so far under the Pinnacle Plan will continue even without the pay and reimbursement increases.
Just last month, we were able to approve 132 new foster families in May. You just got that number last night. I mean, that's incredible.
That was due in part to the efforts of the faith-based community. which has stepped into the foster care situation in a big way.
Where the churches are going back and saying, how can we support our families? The community saying this is bigger than just DHS. What can we do to these people that are actually, what my husband and I call it is home missions?
A mission trip, possibly, in your own neighborhood.
It's working with these kids. The community can go in and say, this is our greatest resource, is our future. This is our now, really, actually. Let's put money in to kids. Not child welfare, but kids. Let's invest in our kids, whether it's education, whether it's foster care.
Representative Nelson says part of the discussion to shift Pinnacle funding to other DHS programs involved the acknowledgement that DHS would be seeking a supplemental appropriation to avoid more cuts in services and employee layoffs.
I would expect there to be some attempt by early next session to try to provide a supplemental to the department, if not sooner.
However, DHS Director Ed Lake has already said he will know in a couple of weeks what it will take in layoffs and service cuts to make up the hole in his budget. And unless the legislature comes back in a special session, it would likely be too late to save many jobs with a supplemental appropriation from the legislature next year.